Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got another combo with a shell that we've never tested before, so I'm definitely curious to see what it can do because it's one that one of you guys sent in and a lot of people have been requesting for me to try it as well. So I'm curious to see how good of a performer that it might actually be. But as for the load we're going to run today, big thank you to Adam for sending some of these over. He sent a bunch of stuff, so we're still going to be working through them all because there's some interesting stuff in there. But we've got some of the Fiocchi Field Dynamics high velocity buckshot loads. These ones are a 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch load of 4 buck moving about 1325 feet per second. A lot of people have been wanting to see the Fiocchi Field Dynamics buckshot loads, and with these being a 4 buck, definitely going to be pretty interesting. But here's what one of the shells actually looks like, and you can finally see on the shell itself it does say 27 pellet where it doesn't actually say that on the box. But they are a nice nickel plated shot. They do have a wad, but there's no buffer material or anything like that in there, so it should be a pretty interesting performer. It's got a wad and nickel plating, which is good, so we'll see how it can actually do, especially since it is a little bit on the cheaper side and it's obviously an import load. Some of the import loads that are cheaper can do pretty nicely, or some of them can be absolutely terrible. Fiocchi is generally somewhere in the middle. Some of their stuff is average, some of it is surprisingly decent, so we'll see what their Field Dynamics 27 pellet 4 buck loads can do. But for the setup we're going to run them out of, I brought out my Remington 1187. It's got a 28-inch barrel, and we're going with the stock factory full choke today. This combo with a full choke is pretty much my go-to starting point with a lot of new buckshot loads. This setup tends to pattern any decent load very nicely, so it should give us a pretty decent starting point to work off of with these Field Dynamics 4 buck loads, and we can obviously move choke up or down or to aftermarket choke or whatever from here. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got the big sheet of paper at 40 yards, the chronograph so we can get our velocity, and the templates that we can lay up over our target. So let's get you guys to view that target. We'll take our shot and just see what we can get for a starting point to work off of with these Field Dynamic 4 buck loads through a stock full choke. Alright, so that shell gave us 1337 through the chrono. Boss claim is 1325, so from our 28-inch barrel, we are just a little bit over that claim. That's nothing too unexpected though. That's right about where I would think they should be, low 1300s. And to my surprise, they were a pretty snappy load in the recoil department as well. Not necessarily high recoiling or hurt your shoulder recoil, but just pretty quick and snappy. But how did they actually pattern for a starting point through that full choke? Let's go check it out and see. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. For reference, the white dot is the point of aim. The paper is 36 inches wide by about 44 inches tall or so. And to my surprise, we did keep all 27 pellets on the paper, even though I think we did favor a touch off to the left. So we barely kept them on the paper over there on the left side, that's for sure. But initially looking at it as a whole, it's just kind of a broad spread of pellets. It's a pretty even spread of pellets for the most part, but this is essentially more like a waterfowl equivalent pattern when it comes to buckshot, if that makes any sense. We only kind of really had one flyer up here at the very top, and I did measure the entire pattern both horizontally and vertically, and we had a 28-inch tall by 30-inch wide pattern, so just kind of a pretty broad spread of pellets overall. This is nothing great. It's not the worst we've seen, but I think it needs some work. I have some decent hopes that we might be able to dial these in with the right choke, probably go into a little more constriction or potentially an aftermarket choke like the Buck Kicker or the Black Mamba or something along that line might be the ticket here, because I don't think we've blown our pattern out, but I think it could do with a little more constriction, and maybe we could condense that spread down a little. Initially, this looks more like a coyote on the run type of pattern than a deer hunting pattern or something like that, but let's throw some actual templates up and that'll give us a little better idea of how it performed. So first up here is our 10-inch circle, and it really doesn't look too impressive down here at 40. We had a definite 3 and maybe one more over on the far left side sneak in, but clearly we have a pretty decent void right there. If we move that template up, down, left, or right, we would probably pick up a few more pellets, but still, I don't think we would ever have more than maybe 5 pellets or so in our 10-inch circle at 40. So not the greatest for our core area, but that just kind of comes with the territory of it being a much broader spread like that. But let's swap over to some animal templates and see how it would look if you actually hunted with this combo. All right, so next up we have our deer template. When we line it up with our point of aim, we would have absolutely covered that deer in pellets, no doubt about it. Would that be a dead deer? Yep, for sure it would be, but you would have hit probably every cut of meat on the deer with that pattern. So maybe not the optimal deer hunting combination unless you're somebody that hunts close quarters, doing like deer drives or running deer with dogs or something along that line, where you like to use 4-buck because you're taking shots on moving deer and stuff like that. That might be a decent combo and the kind of pattern you're looking for. But for most people, it's probably just going to be too broad for a deer hunt scenario. So let's swap over to the hog template, and that'll give us a little better reference on a little bit smaller body sized animal as well. So here's that hog template, and it's pretty well the same story. If you wanted to pig hunt with these, would it be able to do the job out to 40 yards? Yes. However, you're going to absolutely cover that pig in pellets. Might be decent for somebody who's kind of run and gun, chasing pigs, maybe running them around in a field with a truck or something along that line. That might be what you're looking for. But this does give us a better size reference for a coyote as well. They would be a little bit smaller than this hog template is, and you definitely would cover them in pellets as well. And that might be the best use for this particular pattern from this combo, is kind of running or jogging coyotes out to 40 yards or so. That would absolutely do it, while also giving you some leeway to work with if they kind of darted around pretty quickly. So maybe a little bit of a case of limited use. As for a hunting scenario from this particular combination, unless you're one of those specific people that I just mentioned, but I hopefully think we can dial these in a little bit tighter with the right choke. A little more constriction probably would not hurt. This is a decent starting point. It's a pretty even spread of pellets, so I think we can work with this. Overall, it's probably about what I expected to see from these shells. They are a very basic load of 4-buck in an import shell that's not super expensive to begin with. It's not a terrible pattern, but it's not anything super great or impressive either. So now we just got to try it through some other chokes and see what we get, and hopefully we can tighten these down a little bit. And if we can, while also keeping the nice even spread of pellets, they might be a pretty nice looking combination from the right setup. So if nothing else, we have a decent starting point and we can move from here from today's results. And here's the wad from that shell. We lost 2 of the 4 petals off of it, which seems to be kind of a common thing with these Fiocchi shells here recently. I've tested some other buckshot from them, and it did the exact same thing pretty much. Other than that, I mean, there's nothing stuck in the wad, and there's no other major damage on the outside of the wad. They just like to lose their petals for one reason or another. It obviously seemed to still control the pattern pretty decently, or else we would have blown our pattern all over the place. It's just not anything super impressive for a wad. These probably aren't going to give us anything super tight for a pattern, but we'll see. We might be able to fine tune them through the right choke. All right, y'all. Well, what do you think about that performance right there? Overall, I would say it's the buckshot equivalent of a waterfowl pattern. It's definitely much more on the broad side than anything else. So on one hand, it's decent because it kept us an even spread, but on the other hand, maybe a little bit too broad and open for some people. Like I've already mentioned, I think we can dial these in a little tighter with a little more construction, but we'll see what happens. If we can hold on to this even pattern, but just condense it down a little bit, then we might have a pretty nice performance shell on our hands here. So if nothing else, we've got a decent starting point to work off of today, and now we kind of know what to expect for a baseline from them. But leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Fiocchi Field Dynamics buckshot loads? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is that a pattern or a combo you would ever hunt with? And if so, would you hunt deer with it, pigs with it, coyotes, anything like that? Or is it just too broad and open for you? And what other choke combos do you want to see us run those shells through that you think might be able to refine them or tune them down just a little tighter than that? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.